project, we decided to use play to disrupt the taken for granted assumptions of how socio-space is used within universities. We decided to play in different areas around campus to note the reactions of our peers and professors as we participated in play. We used a soccer ball to kick around in a variety of different spaces throughout campus that usually aren't used for play, sports, or recreation. We were hoping to have engagement from different peers and professors. However, it was interesting to observe how different spaces seemed to influence if people would engage and play with us or not.
So the following questions related to the course content helped guide us in our process and reflection. We looked at what kind of spatial uses and practices are accepted and what are not at Brock University, where are acceptable places for play on campus, when is play acceptable for university students and professors, and does the use of authority play part in how play is viewed in university? Thinking about tight and loose spaces allows us to answer some of our questions. Tight spaces are spaces that are for designated activities, and if other activities are performed that are considered against social norms, they will either be prohibited or they will be frowned upon in a social context. A gym or a fitness facility is a designated space for a specific activity and function. During our experiment, an employee informed us that they do not allow our activity to take place other than the traditional gym exercises and directed us elsewhere. Spaces that are considered tight spaces of activities and that are overseen by locals, for example, students occupying a university, often feel they have the right to decide how play in the public is used. However, people may be able to change their preconceived notions of the space through deliberately disobeying these social constructs of space. Loose space is where there is room for different activities to take place, and the space is more flexible in terms of designation of activities. These spaces are generally less policed and more likely to welcome new activities and use of the space. Examples we noted from our experiment of loose space were the hallways where people were waiting for class. Formal control is also a way a space can be deemed loose or tight. Positive actions of police officers or others in authority can be considered encouraging and might enhance the loosening of tight spaces if people of authority are on board with the playful activities, such as the security guard did not stop or play with us in our activity, but they refrained from using their authority to make us stop, which made us feel like we can continue using the space. In addition, according to Chun, the authorities seek to create places in conformity with spatial strategies, imposing these spaces with proper operations. However, when it is pictured by the authorities as a sport, it has a legitimate reason to exist. This makes things challenging for those who express play in different forms or who use these types of play that are not legitimate by authorities, such as skateboarding in public places, described by Chun, for example. This function of what is allowed and what is not for spaces used shows that power regulates spatial participants and practices and how space is accepted for different uses.
Most people conform to accepting the city and spaces as it was designed and adapt themselves to designated settings of distinct functions. However, when these spaces are challenged by those who go against the norms, they may have different experiences with the public. Within the study by Emil and Tanai, participants claimed that the playfulness of adults in public was the main element of shock and bewilderment, as this act of play was not used by children. According to the literature, childlike play used by adults in socio-spaces not intended for play or recreation appear to cause confusion among the general public, as it is not deemed appropriate for adults to act in a childlike manner. This sheds light on the hidden limitations and social rules that define the right to use the space. Within our video, you can see the reactions of some of the public, such as hesitation to participate, second looks, and say no thank you to participating with us. This could be interpreted as similar results of what occurs when the parkour participants use public space for play. The hidden rule for our university is typically play is only meant for designated leisure time in places such as Isaac's, our recreation facility, The Zone, and outside on campus. Although Mann describes play and whimsy to be different, within our project we deemed there are similarities, such as both play and whimsy within the literature appear to be out of place in adult settings. In relation to our project and creating change, we believe it can be related to Mann's description of participation throughout spaces where the public is encouraged to see how other impossibilities might become possible, dreams could become reality and hopes that may become actualized. Mann believes whimsy can play a role within politics through creating diversions to social norms within our spaces that go beyond protests and marches. This form of play and whimsy we used was to attempt to allow university students and professors to become aware of their space that they inhibit and reconsider the possibilities that their space can have around them for play. Overall, the intention of our project was to challenge the cultural assumptions about play within university structures. We aim to promote play through kicking a ball to allow university students and professors to acknowledge their preconceived notions of designated space in university. Although we did not provide an explanation of our project to potential participants, our hope was to engage them purely in play without any academic context to it. This will ultimately contribute to the increased value of leisure and play within university through encouraging diversity of space through promoting play.
Semester project, we went around Brock University as a campus, and we went to a number of different spaces in the university and played soccer with each other. So in the experiment, we tried to encourage other people that were around in the public to participate in soccer with us. So kicking the ball back and forth, Nicole and I tried to get people that were looking at us to participate in the activity. So there were times where we asked people to participate or where we noticed them looking and ended up kicking them the ball. Likewise, the professors were also into the activity.
In addition, it was really interesting to notice the different reactions in different social spaces around the university. So, for instance, like Jenny mentioned, the hallway, the Brock Reckel hallway, most people were quite receptive and got a kick out of it. Whereas other people in, say, the library weren't as receptive towards it. It appeared that people who were waiting in the halls to go to class and didn't have much other things to do were more willing to say yes and pay more attention to what we were doing than other people in, say, the library. In the library, we asked a few different people, but nobody seemed to be as interested as it was, rather than when they kind of like had free time in the hallway waiting before lecture.
In addition, we went to the Zone, the fitness facility at Brock, and we were turned away before we could start filming. We did see an employee of the facility and approached them, letting them know about our project, and they said that it wouldn't be a good idea and gave a couple different reasons about safety and proper space, and they directed us to a room, the spin studio, because they said nobody would be in there, and that was the reason they gave us for why we could use that space.
Mm-hmm. It was also interesting to see how the employee also directed us to a higher person of authority to get approval if we could use that space or not. So that kind of demonstrated as well, like, how authority plays a big piece, that if she said yes to us, then what's the repercussions if that space was used for something that it wasn't supposed to be as.
And going off of that, when we asked the security guard if he wanted to play with us, he said no, that he would get in trouble from his boss if he was playing on the job. So this shows that even though he's a person in authority, his power of authority does still control him, and it is always the higher power that kind of makes the decisions around play and why people are so hesitant to participate in it in an abnormal setting.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned during the project was just that it is important to be respectful of space. So we did kind of take authority seriously when they did impose on our project. So when the people of the Zone asked us not to do our project there, it should be understood that respect is important. However, it did show us that also space is used for what it is used for in society, and it is still really frowned upon to misuse space and challenge the realm of how space is being used, which I thought was really interesting, and kind of just taking into context of other activities. Anybody like myself, even working in a gym facility, we do often ask people to stop doing what they're doing if it's considered unsafe, or if it's putting other people kind of in harm's way, or if it's just something where they could get injured themselves. That being said, I don't think us kicking a ball around was putting anybody in danger or ourselves in harm's way, but that's just kind of my own take on it.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway, or what I learned the most, is like the public's reaction to when you play. I think you can watch like a lot of videos online of people defying social norms and kind of obstructing what a space is intentionally used for. So it was interesting actually putting myself in that spot. At first I felt really like self-conscious and like people were gonna laugh and stuff, but it was just interesting. It was observing the looks and the no thank yous, and people who actually engaged in play with us seemed happy about it. Like they didn't seem uncomfortable, so it was really cool to like observe everybody's reactions throughout it. But yeah, so
what it was like to do this activity was, it was definitely a push out of my comfort zone. There were some other activities and projects we looked at doing other than kicking the ball around in public that made me feel a little bit self-conscious or uncomfortable with the situation. I think that is because of the way that societal norms around space have been constructed. It just would have made me feel a little bit too out of place, which I think is a big contributor to how society has made people think and kind of feel in public spaces.
Yeah, so I can relate to what Jenny was mentioning about feeling a little uncomfortable and self-conscious. One of our ideas was even to kick the ball around the dollar store where we purchased the ball, but then we just walked out and it's like we were just so conformed to you pick it up, you buy it, and then you use it somewhere else. So even in that space, after we got out of the store, we looked at each other and we're like, weren't we supposed to play in the store? But it was just like so ingrained in our minds that that's not where you play. So I think it was really interesting to put ourselves out of place to see what it's like. You can kind of relate it to how other people probably perceived us playing. Yeah.